I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land we gather is the traditional territory of the Nishnawbe, Ottawa, Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for February 21, 23 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Councillor Van Henderson, Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests. Are there any? I'd like to declare an item 8.1, the open session of the agenda, one of the names being appointed to the Board of Directors of Westario. Public comment. This is an opportunity of the public to speak to any item of business on the agenda for 2 minutes. If you would come up to the mic, state your name and the agenda item which you'd like to talk to.
Hi, this is Steve Hill.
You just have to turn that mic on at the top there.
Right, sounds like it's on.
I just have a question. What was the appraisal on the 77 acres of airport land before you sold it? And will that information be released to the public? And will the Hutton Heights, the 18 acres that apparently you've agreed to sell, will that be listed on MLS, or will the public be informed and have a chance to purchase this property? Or is it just what happened in the deal on Friday there?
Well, that's not on the agenda. Thanks,
Still
Mr.
answer the question.
Yep.
You're aware of this information. There's no reason you can't answer it. What was the appraisal of the airport? The 77 acres that sold for $200,000. You were on council when it sold. You're privy to this information. Why won't town staff release this info? Or why won't you tell us?
Yeah, it's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda, Mr. Hill,
So
so
you forget what it was appraised for, or you just refuse to tell us?
we're going by what the rules dictate here. Thank you.
You made the rules.
Last I checked, you still worked for us, and you were held responsible or entrusted to take care of our assets, including our real estate. And we're missing a lot of it, and you're refusing to tell us what it was appraised for. I'm sure if it was appraised for less than it was sold for, you would release that information. But the paper
The ball court and the grounds from the Township of North Huron for 10 years. January 2021, we leased it again for another 10 years, and that ends in 2030. It was reported in one of the papers that North Huron provides money to operate the center, and that is indeed correct. What maybe wasn't mentioned is that of that, almost 20% is put back into a capital account that must be spent on all upgrades on the building. Roughly, almost 30% is paid back in rent and lease payments each year to the township. We also pay the water rate for the community center as well as the ballpark pavilion back to the Township of North Huron. We pay approximately, say, 1% for an insurance premium for the building, which regards to fire, water, and comprehensive coverage. Now, the community center board pays all liability insurance, which includes the fact that the center is licensed with the AGCO and has a bar. We also pay for all the lawn care, maintenance, and snow removal. Now, since the board first signed the lease in 2010, we have brought the building up to the fire code with additional exits, fire alarm system, sprinkler system, to name a few. A generator was installed at the center, making it a cooling and warming center for the entire community. We also, years ago, started on bringing the building up to the accessibility requirements. Now, all of this that has been done to now, we have not asked North Huron for any additional money since 2010. Now we are starting back at finishing our accessibility requirements for the 2025 deadline. We're also looking at replacing our 20-year-old playground as it needs to be accessible as well. And we have been setting money aside for this. We operate the center for the entire village and the surrounding community, and I think most of the members on council and in the community know how important that center is to Belgrave. Be it the fowl supper we used to have, the school fair, all the buck and does that are there. It's a hall, it's an arena with a natural ice, everything. And we have provided all of this with the support of our kinsmen and the community at large. I believe that council will look at the amount that they give the Belgrave Community Center yearly and look at what they get back from its operation and what it contributes to the community and the citizens of the East Walnut Township area, the North Huron residents of Belgrave, etc., and conclude that they are getting.
Jonathan, it sounds like the mic just died there. Do you want to turn it back on at the top?
And they will conclude that the ratepayers are getting a good deal for their rate of return. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Natalie Overholt. I'm not coming here in a professional, but a personal concern with the rec center being closed, or parts of it. Apologizing for two things. I'll be ducking out after this as I have children at swimming lessons. Second of all, I did email and call the township and specifically Dwayne Evans and have not had a reply, so I really would have liked to talk more about this issue prior to coming up here, but this is where I am at. We have moved to Wingham a year ago. We came from Mount Forest. I am a small business owner. I sit on the chamber, the BIA, the retail committee. I am well aware of the struggles of operating a recreation center, as we have been trying to rally for the same thing to be done there. However, you guys at some point did make the decision to open up a rec center, and now you are trying to discuss closing it down. I don't think I need to go into the mental health aspect. Having a fitness facility in town, I think you can probably pull stats on your own. Though we use the rec center on a daily basis in our family, I have two boys, ages 8 and 12. We are not a hockey family, therefore my kids use the fitness facility and have permission to work out at the gym. This is very important for them. We pay a monthly membership. Prior to us getting that membership, the other smaller fitness facility in town had not been opened yet. I have spoken to that owner. She does not have the space to handle all the other memberships in town that would require a gym membership should you guys close down the fitness facility. Her space is also way too close, or too small. It has come to my attention from speaking with enough rec staff that the CAO, Dwayne Evans, who does not even live in this township nor use the facility, is the person responsible for bringing this to council. I do not think that it is fair that somebody sitting in our township as the CAO even has a decision on what facility is closed when he will not use it and can go back to Godrich and use the YMCA. Rec staff has also wanted me just to bring up in council that there is an account with $450,000 in it set aside for renovation on the old Wingham Public School, which North Huron does not own and is not being used. So, in my humble opinion, as a parent and somebody that is living here and uses the rec center on a daily basis, it makes more sense, again, like I said, I sit on a chamber and a BIA in a neighboring town, that it makes more sense for you guys to try to figure out how to get more people in this township to join, to get memberships, to take part in these activities, and gave the other girls and the new rec manager that's there time to try to instill new programs and bring people in, because this area is growing. Half of Lower Town right now is for sale. The prices that those lands are for sale and the amount of money it's gonna take to build a house like we have, it's not gonna come from local money. It's coming from people who are moving into this area from outside of town. People aren't gonna wanna move here when there's nothing to do if you close down the one thing that there is to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Anybody else?
If I bring up an item on the agenda and ask a question, will you answer? Or is it just no, you don't answer any questions at all?
I'll thank you for your input on what you bring up, Mr. Hill.
Upset?
Thank you. Consent agenda. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further that Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.7 for information. Do I have a mover? Councillor Van Hitterson. Councillor Whitfield, seconds. Does anybody want to pull anything up? Okay. Okay. Move on then. I guess I didn't have to do that.
Wait, so you gotta call the vote for the consent agenda.
All in favor? Carried. Public meetings and hearings and delegations. 6.1 is our first person here, William Wallace, Security Plan for North Huron Connection Center. I'll ask Mr. Wallace to come up and talk, and then after that, I'll just wait for your questions and ask Mr. Erb to come forward from United Way. That might clarify some things. Go ahead, Mr. Wallace.
As a delegation, he can.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Reeve.
Wait, Mr. Wallace, could you come right up on front here as a delegation?
Oh, up on the stand? Yeah, sure.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Thank you for your service. This is in regards to a number of issues that came up back several months ago. And as we all know, the community center that's being installed in St. Paul's Church is progressing ahead. That is not, however, the reason I'm here to speak this evening. Several times over the course of discussions with both the United Way and the community center operators, it was suggested and requested that security cameras be installed. I'm a resident of Wingham. I've been here 4 years. I moved my family here. We installed security cameras this year. The response from the United Way has been a wait-and-see approach. So if there are incidents that could require evidence of either wrongdoing or malfeasance or violence or anything else that has been unfortunately connected with centers like this, and I do say that is unfortunate, that a wait-and-see approach would simply be taken. I don't believe this is strong enough. We're talking about $500. 3 cameras that can be recorded, that can zoom, that have high definition, I am not technical at all, and I installed them in my home. It was suggested that I contact the OPP and Inspector Yunin, who I believe last year, although I don't know this year, sat on the police board for North Huron. I have tried to contact Inspector Yunin several times. Unfortunately, I have not been able to. He's a very busy man and has not been able to return my call, which is fine. But I'm hoping that council could suggest very strongly to both the United Way and to the committee that will be operating the center that at the very least, especially in light of the arrest and very large police presence that was on Center Street 10 days ago, that shut down a house that was dealing drugs, because we all saw the list of what was in that home, and there were several items for sale in varying quantities, and that home is less than 100 meters from this proposed center, as is my home. So if council would suggest to both the United Way and the center, and perhaps St. Paul's Church as well, that at the very least, the perception of security could be offered by the installation of video cameras. That's my presentation. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for me?
I was going to, okay, go ahead.
Thank you
Deputy
for
Reid.
your just a point of clarification on it. The United Way project is a project being facilitated by the Huron County initiative. Yes, it's in North Huron, but we have absolutely no control over even requiring yourself to install video cameras.
I am aware of that,
no,
Councillor.
I take your comments quite clearly, and if there is a way of us conveying that message on, I feel that it would be okay for us to do that as a conveying our constituents' requests through to it, but as you can see, we have no weight whatsoever to go forward and require them.
I understand that, and I accept that as a matter of legality. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with something from Letterhead coming to another organization that also has Letterhead.
Yeah, we can discuss that as a council. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Wallace at all?
Thank you for your time,
Councillor
ladies and
Paul,
gentlemen.
no, sorry,
Oh,
right here,
Yeah,
Councillor
thank you,
Palmer.
Rave. Yeah, I agree with your concerns. This is new to the area, like this type of housing, and where it's being held. So I think residents need to feel safe, regardless. And I think that what's being proposed is at least some letters off to where they should be, and try and help the situation. Security camera is always the sort of the go-to way of the first thing of security. So at least that'd be the minimum, I would say.
I know that the United Way and St. Paul's Church have given us the information, and when I say us, I mean other homeowners and citizens in the neighborhood, that they do have a panic button plan. There are security plans in motion, and I am aware of that. I do not feel they're adequate, and that's why I'm making this suggestion to council. I have made this suggestion to the United Way several times.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Any other questions for our gentleman? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Wallace.
Cheers.
Okay, at this time, 6.2, I'd like to welcome Lisa Harper and Ryan Erb from United Way, Perth Huron. Progress report on the Northern Huron Connection Center. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and council members, to the public. Grateful to be here. Ryan Erb with the United Way. So Just to respond, first of all, before I get into the presentation, thank you, Mr. Wallace, again for reiterating your concerns. We're grateful to continue to hear from the public and the residents around the opportunity that we have to partner with the Connection Center that is proposed for just a few weeks' time from now. It is planned to be opened in April sometime. Renovations are ongoing in the church, and we're grateful that Reverend Joanne Todd is with us tonight, representing the congregation. And I'll reiterate to Mr. Wallace and council what I've said to him a couple of times, but certainly respect his and receive his input. The United Way has been working with partners, of course, to bring this project to the community, which we're very proud of. The operational partners are our friends at Canadian Mental Health, and they will be operating the program. They are working closely with the OPP to consider their security plan. So what we are anticipating is that after comments from the OPP, a security plan that is appropriate for the use of the facility will be created. And I've shared a little bit of our experience at other centers, trying to help Mr. Wallace understand that it has not been our experience that there have been major incidences at any of the other connection centers that we have in the region. However, no one can predict the future. It's fair for Mr. Wallace and other residents to ask questions. So we do anticipate more information coming, and we have agreed to host a meeting 3 months after the center is in operation to review what has happened. It's difficult to predict how things will happen, so it is our plan to receive information from residents after a short period of operation and to consider their concerns in addition to the work that will happen between now and when the center opens. And we have committed to continuing to operate in transparent ways and providing information to Mr. Wallace and other residents that came to a meeting a number of weeks ago that was held at the church. And so as things progress with the OPP and security plans and those sorts of things, we will be providing another update.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just take, are there any questions that any of you councilors have for Mr. Herb? Go ahead, Councilor Wright.
Yeah, so, as I understand the residents' concerns, it's, and I know you talked about this already, but there's a perception that these connection centers kind of become magnets for troubled individuals. But when I was looking through at the information available, the thought that went through my head is that typically people that, the people that are coming to this connection center are people looking for help. Mm-hmm. And typically those are not the people that cause the trouble. The people that cause the trouble are the ones that aren't looking for help. So I just wanted to, you kind of touched on it a bit, but I think it's worth talking about a bit more, that, historically, is there incidents of issues at these connection centers, or, are people just looking for help?
Well, thank you for the question. We certainly have experience with a wide array of residents who take use of the connection centers in other communities. So we've been operating in Stratford, Listowel, and Exeter for the past year and a bit. So we're early in the days of operating connection centers, but we see women and children coming to use laundry facilities. We see individuals who are experiencing homelessness perhaps come for warmth or cooling or to grab a bite to eat. But really, we see lots of different people coming to the centers, getting the help that they need, to your point. And we hope and find, based on our experience, although I realize it's only a year or year and a half of experience locally operating the centers, that we will have a similar experience here and not have major challenges with people. You can't predict the future. There could be a challenge with an individual. We don't know. But at this point in time, we, by and large, see the centers operating with a lot of connections to people who are struggling, yes, but also to people who certainly have names and histories and are beautiful people and deserve our attention and help. And I know that that's Mr. Wallace's care and concern as well. He's said that several times. He certainly isn't against the operating of the center. He just has concerns about security, and we respect those concerns.
Thank you. Any other questions from councilors? Okay, seeing none? Okay.
Now, we did have a short presentation just more generally about the United Way. Is it okay if we move into that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Available just by clicking here?
It's open at the bottom of the laptop there, right?
Okay. All right, so we did want to provide a brief update about the Connection Center. I will mention again that we're thankful for the support from the community. The Connection Center is going to be operating from St. Paul's Trinity Anglican Church, and the services offered are warming, cooling, food, showers, clothing, laundry facilities, those basic needs. But probably the more important part of the operation of the center is to provide a connection to other services. So service providers will be coming on site from many different organizations offering help for anything from legal aid to addictions support to making sure that people are perhaps connected to violence against women services, those kinds of things in our community. So that the Connection Center is, things are going well and progressing with the renovation, which we're grateful for. Major fundraising efforts, thanks to my colleague here, Lisa Harper, February 25th, which is this Saturday, related to Coolest Night of the Year, so we still encourage the community to come out and support. The funds raised from this event, this walkathon that happens on Saturday at 4 o'clock, is going to be helping to operate the center in the coming year, so we're grateful for the support from the community. We've got many teams and many people that are helping. Thank you to the community for that. The United Way, for those of you who are relatively new to council, wanted to share with you just a little bit more about the specific things that we do outside of the Connection Center. We operate something called the Social Research and Planning Council, and this is your local source of information about social issues. And so there are reports on many different social issues on our website. We also operate myperthhuron.ca, which is a website that aggregates social information for the community. And we welcome the opportunity to share that information from time to time to council. We will be coming in the near future to talk to you about food security and a report that's being released around that issue. So the Social Research and Planning Council helps us to understand the social issues that we're facing in this community and provides local data so that we can make good decisions, and I hope that council will utilize that information. One of the other things the organization does is that we try to champion the living wage, and we do the calculation every year to help people understand what it costs to make ends meet in our region. The current calculation is $20.70, and so we highly recommend to business owners and organizations, including this organization here, to pay the wage of $20.70 at a minimum, and encourage people to participate in the living wage certification program. So we help businesses to certify, and many have done so. We're grateful for lots of businesses locally that have said yes to this. It helps us to address poverty in a proactive way in your local community. Another service to be aware of is the 211 service, and we're grateful that we have the opportunity to provide this to your community. 150 different languages, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People can call for help and receive help from a live answer service with the calling center out of Collingwood. We're grateful that people have the opportunity to learn what services are available and get the help they need. Oftentimes people will call presenting with one challenge, and before the call is done, the counselor will help them find 3 sources of information because problems are often quite complex. And so this is a fantastic service to share. The United Way is involved, of course, at a high level in all of the social issues that you're facing. We're involved with Together in Partnership on the community and safety well-being conversation that all of the lower tier municipalities are charged with, having written the report to support that discussion. And we're glad to partner about all the unignorable issues that our community faces. I'm happy to answer any questions. Last year, the United Way served well over 32,000 people across Perth and Huron, and we're grateful that we have the opportunity to work together in partnership.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Reeve Faulkner?
Yes, thank you, through you, Reeve. Just a point of clarification on the presentation and the boards that we're going through here is, originally when you came, when this started out, there was a great association through Choices of Change. I notice on here now there's absolutely no mention of Choices of Change.
Thank you.
That's who you were using for your development help, addiction help, and for your center. Why is that not involved anymore?
Thank you for the question. It is simply because they have changed their name. So they are now called the Canadian Mental Health Association for the region. So they formally merged two organizations in January of this year.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
still the operational partner.
Okay, yeah, so what are they called now?
Canadian Mental Health Association.
Okay, thought that was the province.
No, it's they're local chapters. There's also provincial
Thank you
organizations.
for the clarification.
Thank you. Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Erb at this time, Counselor? Seeing none? Thank you for coming. Appreciate that very much. Okay, at this time, I'll ask Mr. Wayne Johnson for his delegation. Yes, come right up front, sir.
And your PowerPoint slide is open at the bottom.
First off, I just want to say thanks for the opportunity to present tonight to council, and congratulate all the new ones and elected officials on their success at the last municipal election. And I know you got a challenge in front of you, but I like the makeup of the council. So how do you get in here? Hang on. Right there. I got her. Thank you. Let me just go on without it.
Yep, yeah, council has it in their agenda.
So, yeah, you all have it. So what I wanted to bring forward tonight was how the North Huron ice install removal has impacts how the Ironman of the Junior C Loop schedule due to some constraints. In the first slide in there, our last scheduled home game of this hockey season was last Friday. Now, we did play yesterday, a fantastic crowd. That was a makeup game from a Friday night that was postponed due to a storm. So our regular season schedule, our last home game was Friday the 17th. That's 1 month later than pre-COVID, or pre-pandemic times, when back in 2016-17, our last home game was on Sunday, January 17th. So you can see how pre-pandemic and then since we come out, how it's affected. Now, that has nothing to do with our ice installation or removal. We have looked at a different scheduling. The league has looked at a different scheduling method due to the fact that they've eliminated the final two series and went to a four-team tournament-style format beginning in middle of May. Some past history back in 2016-17, our schedule ended Sunday, February the 5th. Our last home game that year was February 10th. We were eliminated from the playoffs in the first round that year, and that's been the last time since that's happened. So this year, that first round of the playoffs will begin somewhere around March 11th. So we're starting our playoffs 1 month after we were eliminated back in 2016. The second round of our playoffs this year are scheduled to end on April 3rd, which was back pre-pandemic. February the 4th was around that time that happened. That's when our last regular season game was. And you go through the previous years, 2018-19, Sunday, February 3rd. Our last home game was Sunday, March 16th. That was the third round of the playoffs. And then round 4 is what we call now the conference finals. So this year, we're going to be, we feel we have a very competitive hockey team. Our second round of the playoffs will not be over, to be optimistic, when the ice is scheduled to go out on April 1st. We find that puts the hockey team at somewhat of a risk by either having to guarantee so many hours of ice in a week, which we can't, or move our playoff home games out of town, which I don't think is beneficial to anybody. So we're really looking at developing something that will work for everyone in it. And I have slide 2 here. I have met with Vicki and her staff on looking at some suggestions for this year of how we can extend the ice into the month of April so that we don't have to go out of town. And we've tossed around numerous ideas and looking at canvassing organizations, businesses, to see if they'll rent ice so that we can maintain the ice in town here. What I'd really like is council to give some consideration to their ice policy. I know they, I was here in late August, early September with minor hockey. They were looking at the ice going in a bit early. They took a lot of hours over to the South Bruce centers because we didn't have ice available here in October. And I'd really like to see council give it some thought of putting the ice back in, looking at that policy, and installing the ice on September 1st. Historically, the Ironmen have started their home season on the second Friday of September, on that weekend. That's where we were pre-pandemic. Since we come out of it, we've been into October the last 2 years with our first home game. So we start our regular season the second week of September, and we play upwards of 5 or 6 home game or road games before we have ice available in Wingham. And it puts us a wee bit behind the other teams in our division. For one is the home ice, and 2 is they've already practiced on their ice, because most municipalities in our division have ice available to the junior teams at the 1st of September. So if the council would give some consideration to work with the rec department, or whichever way that goes, the rec department work with you to update that policy to reflect ice going in September 1, as was previously done, and extend the season of ice to the end of April, which was typically done. As I mentioned, I met with Vicki and them. We're trying to work through this year to get some hours that we can extend the ice if we need to. But I think we need to look at that stuff as more of a abnormal condition as compared to normal operations. So that was that. Where do I go here? Anyways, I can't bring it up there. The last thing I'd like to give our council to give some consideration. Throughout the summer and early fall, a group of us canvass many businesses, organizations, all in town here, Blythe, Brussels, Teeswater. We go and pound the streets looking for sponsorships to operate the hockey club. I'm going to estimate that the operation of the hockey club this year will cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000. And I'd like the council to give some consideration to getting into the community spirit with a sponsorship of a couple home games, which would waive the fees for the ice and allow some revenue to be generated on the plus side. And it will reduce the financial burden. As I said, the costs continue to increase. One of the ones that, if it went up dramatically this year, is we went to a 4-man officiating system, so we pay 2 referees to travel. And just on Friday night, we played Kincardine, and it was a little over $500 for the 4 officials for a home game. So, and it would just show council that you're here to support minor or junior C hockey in Wingham. And the last thing I have is this is very, very in the infancy stage. We're looking next year. We'll celebrate 50 years of competitive hockey in the OHA. The Ironmen started in 73-74 as a junior D club, which I'm not the only one around the table who remembers it, but we will be forming. We're going to form a committee. We'd like to have a committee to look at some events, some community events, some alumni stuff, and do a bit of celebrating. 50 years is quite a milestone to have a junior C hockey club in a town of this size. So one thing I'd like the council to consider is, depending on the outcome of the committee, we are looking at an alumni day where we'd have some of the previous year's Ironmen back, and we'd have a little 2-game tournament with some activities for families in between games, and then we would have a regular season game after that. And we'd ask the council to consider sponsoring that ice for that day that we're looking at celebrating and bringing people into the community. Any questions?
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions from council, please? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Thanks for your read. Yeah, the one thing I hope you could clarify is like you mentioned that COVID caused the schedule to shift, but what's preventing it from shifting back? Just wondering what the issues are there.
So when our previous schedules used to run, the second weekend of September to the second week of February, we were burdened with some 3-game weekends, which as kids work, and I call them kids because the maximum age is 21. We have kids that go to school, we have kids at work, kids travel from out of town. 3 games in a weekend with a practice is a lot for junior C hockey. So what they did after, when we got shut down in 2019 and 20, there was a committee formed and they looked at a tournament. So they've extended the regular season to take away the requirements of that and tacked on a tournament. The tournament originally started in the COVID year last year when we got shut down for the month of January. We had to, our regular season was scheduled to end in January or first week of February last year, but when we got shut down in January, where it couldn't be any hockey or anything, we tacked that regular season on to the end of the year and they went to a tournament. Now they've adopted that scheduling as the schedule. So there's a variety of reasons. One, the success of the tournament was one. 2 is prevents, or it doesn't prevent it, but pretty well eliminates the need to play through the week or a 3-game weekend. So our schedule now runs from the middle of September to the first weekend of March is when we're done, which just extends the playoffs out. Like the tournament this year is scheduled in Woodstock for, I want to say somewhere around May 17th will be the wrap-up of junior C hockey in the province.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I'm sort of with Councillor Wright there. I think things should go back to the normal because it's hard, or it's not right not right for your association to just, oh, let's go till May. Let's do one in May. Because you've got to consider with the small towns and the costs. Like it can be 25 to 30,000 a month in hydro to keep the arena going. So that has to be considered. We consider it, and I just thought, your association should be talking to towns, councilors, and rec department people, just to get their ideas before they come out with, oh, let's have a tournament in May. 'Cause it just doesn't work everywhere.
I'm not going to disagree with it. It doesn't work everywhere. However, our league is spread from Essex to east of Napanee and Huntsville down to Grimsby. So we cover pretty well the whole provinces. There's 62 teams compete in the PJHL. They found that this is something that worked well for a year, so they've adopted that schedule. And we're one voice in that 62. I not to be devil's advocate or anything, but I would challenge the council to go back to pre-pandemic when we did have ice to the end of April. Because we played, numerous years we've played well into April, into the second and third, fourth round of playoffs. And it was always, end of April was when we took ice out, put it in September 1st.
Unfortunately, the budget dictates a lot of things we do these days.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I think we need to give it some consideration. I think we need to, my idea is that we plan for the norm, adjust to the abnorm. And I think it's going to be quite normal for the Wingham Ironmen to be playing hockey mid to late April. And I think there's minor hockey support to keep ice in a bit longer. I don't know what it costs to run hydro. And obviously it does cost money. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I also challenge that I just saw on social media there last week that there's ice available in Howick till April 30th. So, not that I'm heading there. Any other questions?
So any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Not really a question, but I imagine we could find the numbers from going back to 2018, 2019, whatever, what the net cost was to run. You maybe even have the numbers since this was deliberated last year, I believe. But, you know, I'm just curious. I would like to consider this, and I'm just curious what the other rentals are that would happen during that time, or at least did back in 2018. To figure out what the net income would be, because I assume there would be some rentals that would offset the extra hydro costs, et cetera, right?
Yes, I agree with what you've brought to us, Mr. Johnson. I'm very disappointed about that month longer. I find that maybe could you even cut down the schedule a little bit? You know, like there's other ways around it, so we're not playing hockey on it. You know, I love hockey, and it's just maybe we can get our rec director to give us bring back a report for us and see what you came up with, because I understand there you showed where you had a few discussions and whatnot with her and
Yeah.
what you came up with, and I'd really like to have our rec director bring us back some info.
Yeah, I like Councillor Wright's comment there about what happened in, like, 2019, 2020 is the season we got shut down. We are in the league final, our division final, and it was March 20th, and we were to take a 2-week break, flatten the curve, you've heard it, and we never got back. We were pretty confident in our hockey club that year. We were at game 2. We would have been wrapping up our division final in the end of March. and then we would have moved on to the Smoltz quarterfinals, which you're granted another 2 weeks to play. We were pretty confident we were heading there, but that was normal operations at that time. I think you look back to this 2013-14 season, the Ironmen went to the Smoltz semifinals. They were playing well into April, the end of April. And the year they went to the final, 03-04, the first game of the finals against Grimsby was held on Good Friday in Grimsby. And then they played in Wingham the following weekend. So that's kind of a timeline. But as I say, that's all shifted now.
Right.
But it only gives, if you were playing that type of schedule today, you'd still need ice to then, and the tournament happens after that, because that's where they make up the month, is by having a tournament instead of having 2 rounds of playoffs. It's just, I'd hate to be sitting here next year. Not that I have a problem with working with the rec staff. I think Rochelle and Vicky have been really good to work with. But I don't think we should have to do that every year if this is going to be a repeat thing. And I feel it will be. So.
So could we have it that our rec director bring us back a report then, or do you have something to say?
No, just going to say, Reeve, in terms of, so council previously directed for cost review analysis for the recreation centers. So rather than a separate motion, I would suggest that when that report is brought back to council, that can be included as part of that report. So if council wishes to pass a separate motion, certainly welcome to do so, but council has already previously directed that report, so.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Reeve?
Yes, 3 Reeve, I guess 2 Reeve. You have to understand that, Mike, where I'm coming from, the optics of this decision or this conversation, of how souring it looks when we're in the middle of trying to figure out whether we close an arena during the summertime when we can't afford to keep the lights on. And we haven't come to any conclusion of that, so I can just tell you what the fun conversations are going to be on the street if you're extending one operation and haven't dealt with the core problems that we have first. I would much rather eliminate or come to some kind of decisions on the things that are on the table now before any thoughts of extending more services longer. It just, the optics of it to me are just not lining up. Unless, someone, the rest of the council would like to show me how that's going to work out. Thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing for the Deputy Reeve. I'm not asking for that to change this year. I'm asking for it to change in the fall. Where Vicky and we're going to work through this year if we need to extend the ice for a couple weeks by getting businesses to sponsor ice time for an hour for public skating or that. But I think I want to get here now so that if we need to change that policy for the next hockey season, we're going to live with what we have this year. I'm not asking you to change it for this year. But starting in the hockey season of 2023, 2024 is when I'm asked for consideration of ice early, ice late. Change your policy. We'll deal with the one this year.
Okay, appreciate that, Mr. Johnson. So any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Okay. Thank you very much. Reports, 7.2.1, Financial 2023-04, Use of Reserves and Reserves Fund Accounts for the 2023 budget. Are there any questions for Mr. Director Towns? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, my first question's just very high level. I really like the report and the ideas in it. I guess I wanted clarification. Is this considered like a step towards what our final budget looks like? And is the intent that this will be incorporated into the next budget draft we see? And I think that's the case. I just, my perception is, even though we have this report, we could go back and still revisit, do you want to take a bit more out of reserves? That we could still, look at that a bit. And I just thought before council voted on it, it'd be good to have that discussion to make sure that, other people have the same perception, or is this kind of the end state is what, like working with reserves for this year's budget?
Okay, maybe Director Towns to comment on that, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve, to Councillor.
That mic's off, Chris.
There we go. Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Mitch Wright. If council is desirous, they approve the recommended transfers from reserves. This would be reflected in the current 2023 budget as presented, with approximately a $456,000 reduction as to what was previously proposed. This is not full inclusive. There are more options available during the budget process. And as I had mentioned, I believe in our first draft of operating and capital budgets, that when I moved into this position, I did notice the need to have some of these reserve accounts cleared up and create proper bylaws for them all. So due to the nature of the request at the January 12th council meeting, this is what I'm presenting as of at that. And as we divulge further into the budget discussions, with your approval, these reserve balances will be reflective of that, and there is options for council to make direction to utilize those funds. And within that, Councillor Wright, just to clarify as well, there's been a number of emails that had come through about within the recommendations about the Goliath Recreation and the Wingham Recreation. The reason why those have been captured the way they have been is that there were tax funds specifically allocated for those projects in previous years that were either over budgeted or not completed, or whatever the various reasons are. They were way before my time, and to keep it fair to the ratepayer, they have been captured within those two municipalities. As projects continue and those funds get depleted, those reserves would be depleted, and there would be one simple recreation reserve as requested. And also another question that has come up on a number of occasions is the policing reconciliation, the OPP reconciliation, that within this document allows for, the request is there for creating the police Wingham only reserve as what those funds were intended to be utilized for, and that is actually already been captured within the 2023 budget.
Thank you. Are you happy with?
Yeah, you answered my next question too, so well done.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Towns, please? Everyone okay? Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 6, 2023 regarding the use of reserves and reserve fund accounts for the 2023 budget for information purposes. And further, that council authorized Director of Finance Treasurer to consolidate, create, and rename each of the reserve accounts as per the attached Schedule A. And further, that the council authorized Director of Finance Treasurer to make the necessary transfers to eliminate the Township of North Huron's internal loans as per the attached Schedule B using the Asset Management Reserve Fund. And further, that the council directs the clerk to prepare the necessary reserve fund account bylaws for a further regular meeting of council for adoption. Do you have a mover? Councillor Palmer, seconder. Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. Seven point 6.1. CAO 2023-03 Belgrave Community Center Board update. Are there any questions for CAO Evans? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. I'm hoping that you can give me some extra time on this, because I want to speak for all those users that aren't being given the opportunity, like, say, the Blythe people are, for instance, to get their concerns out. So if I can have that, Reeve, I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm thankful that Jonathan Van Camp came, and he highlighted some of the interesting points, and I'd like to sort of delve into some of them with more details. Okay, well, we know our two other arenas are staffed by our own people. We know the costs of that, and this one in Belgrave, it's done in a different way. We basically have an agreement with a board. It's a third-party board, and it's made up of local people. So for 14 years, this board is run efficiently and passionately cared for by the Belgrave Community Center. They treat it like it's theirs. And the users are all locals that care for the place immensely as well. So I'm really hoping that council sees nothing but option 6, because anything other than that, I believe, would be reckless. The betterment of the Belgrave Community Center is at risk here. The community center is a place for social events, kinsman activities, of which there's many, skating, wedding events, buck and does. Many retirees, such as myself, go down to the center for coffee. There's coffee hours there, and meals we have. And then, of course, there's many rentals as well. It's a warming center in case of emergencies, and it's a place with electricity during times of blackouts. So those are why the center is important to people. But let's look at the cost. What's it costing North Huron? $56,000 is what we donate to them. That's their, just call it seed money or whatever. That's what we give. Well, they pay back a rent, and it's $17,000 this year. So that leaves $39,000 left. That's it. That's what they operate with. And out of that $39,000, and it could be argued 40, but nevertheless, $12,187 goes into this capital account every year, and it's only to be used for capital repairs and such. It does not get used into the normal functions of the board. $9,000 for grass cutting, yard work, and snow removal. That's a big one. $1,500 for water. $12,600 for insurance, of which $600 is paid back to North Huron to be part of that umbrella, our insurance umbrella. But then they buy an extra, like the $20 million liability from a local insurance company, and that costs $12,000. They pay it. So out of that, there's $3,713 left. So of our investment of $56,000, they had $37,000. Sounds like a good deal so far. Oh, wait, labor. What would that cost if we were running it? We'd have 2 or 3 people down there, all $40,000, $50,000, maybe $60,000 people. That's not good. Anyways, they do it. Their manager, with many hats, $14,700 a year. That's it. And part of that is the duties of having the license and all those activities that relate to it. $2,100 for a secretary, $2,100 for a treasurer. So that adds up to $18,900. So that's their labor. And when you stick that into the $3,713 balance, that's a $15,000 deficit. They've never come to us looking for money. That deficit is covered by other functions that their board business model does. And it's a very busy place. They, of course, as mentioned, the foul supper, that was a biggie. It'd be really nice if it can come back. But even so, with the Kinsmen, the partnering with the Kinsmen and sharing, there's some good functions there, good money made. So the money that they make from their business is of course banked, and we saw the letter, and it's around 228,000-ish that they have in the bank. Sounds like a lot of money. Oh, why should we give them any money if that's all they've got? That's what they got. But no, that's what Morris Turnberry did. I don't want to bash them, but that's what they did, and it was short-sighted. They cut what they normally give, and I hope that they see fit to return that amount. But having that money in the bank, look at what they need to do with it. They're looking forward. There's those expected costs and those unexpected ones, and of course the accessible requirements. That's a big one. It's got to be done by 25, and that is one they're saving for. And, to do the building, it's 2 levels. So they'll need a ramp, they'll need a lift. They're talking about an outside part stuck on the side of the building and it has to be covered to link the two. There's a bunch of things, and they're engineered that they will soon get, I hope. Or maybe they've already got one. We'll be figuring out the best route. So, and the playground, it's 20 years old. There's requirements for it too. I'll probably have to replace it, and it's too soft. It's great when a child falls, but not today's standards. It has to be on a sort of a hard-ish surface. And all that will cost between $100 and $150,000 for that, $150,000 for the improvements around the building, and they've already spent $33,000 or $38,000 on improvements for accessibility. So the building itself is good, like the center part, the hall, it's good, but they have to do the rest. So that money that they have in the bank is going to help to do that, help pay for that. Generally, it's the owner of the building pays for everything. And of course, I know staff is worried about that coming down the pipe. But they, like they said, they treat it like it's theirs. They want to contribute to that as much as they can. So I'm hoping this relieves staff in that, thinking it's all the municipality that's got to deal with it, okay? So that's important. I hope that council sees that we're not throwing just good money after bad money. We're actually handing money to a group that is utilizing it efficiently. The management structure is running as a well-run machine, and it's operated by locals. And the goal in mind for them is to serve the public in the best way that they can, okay? I'd like to make a motion regarding the Belgrave Community Center that staff proceed with option 6. That's the status quo.
Option 6, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Van Hitterson? Okay, any other questions before we go ahead, Deputy Reid?
Sure, we were going to get a chance to finish the conversation. I personally don't, I don't like the process that we're using right now. I got caught in it the last time that this, stuff like this comes through, where you have 10 lists of things, okay, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Last time this went, things like this went through, there was the first 4 or 5 were to do with Blythe. I felt that Blythe was willing to make concessions. We looked at other ways of running the campground, other ways of running the arena, other ways of doing things, closing it during the summer months. We agreed that just all these things should be looked at. And then the next list of priorities, we're all no. No, we need more of this, we need more of that. Well, let's not do this right at this moment. So it was kind of an unfair advantage of that put one municipality in front of the other ones. So you make all the concessions, and then there's no other concessions being made in the rest of the township. Same way as this is coming up, we're asking to make a decision on another ward's asset before any other concession is made. Any other concession within our township has not been voted on. I don't agree with having to make a decision, pick them off one at a time. That's, I don't like that kind of thing. Because as it stands here now, how do I know if I voted for, the best case scenario here, that when it comes to an asset in the Blythe ward, they're all going to vote no. My vote is going to be either tainted or judged by the other votes of assets for the rest of, or for the other parts of the township. So I can't see with good heart of voting everyone else's proposals to do status quo, and then come down to when it's last, who's ever last, gets picked out and gets knocked off. I don't think this is a fair roundtable, asking individual wards to be the first to lose their assets or save their assets when it's not looked at as a whole. Like we've had delegations that are wanting to expand our services. Now we're making a decision whether we're even going to keep one or we're going to cut them. To pick them off like that, I find that is not a fair process.
Mm-hmm.
Unless if somebody else wants to get picked off first, I'm all for it, but I don't think this is a fair process to do it this way.
Go ahead, Councillor Whitfield.
I'm kind of with Kevin, but I think we're way ahead of ourselves looking at this at the present time. We have not finalized the budget. We have not seen a final budget come in to see even where we stand, to see if something has to be cut. And I would like to see the budget, see what monies have come up, what our staff has looked at, and see where we're at before we even start voting on getting rid of something here. That's just the way I feel about it.
Okay. Councillor Van Henderson.
Yeah, I think this is just one of the, processes that is a follow-up on all the directions we gave during the budget meeting. And yeah, it is weird because it's like this one came up and the people of Belgrave and East Wabby, well, even whoever uses this, didn't have the opportunity to write a letter to us or do something like that. So I don't know what a proper process would be, or if we want to wait and have all those 12 or 13 recommendations looked after, or I don't know what is wise. And I certainly don't want to do like, yeah, you're last or you're first, so there goes your red pencil.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Oh, yeah, so process-wise, so basically, I guess, to answer your question there, basically, so at the January 12th or 13th council meeting, can't remember which day that was, but council provided a number of directions on follow-up information that you're requesting, and basically, I guess the process of staff has been provide that back to council as things have come in. So, for example, You saw the letter on the results of the cemetery RFP. You saw the reserves report. You're now seeing the Belgrave Community Center report. But if what I'm hearing is you want to see it all at the same time, that is certainly possible, right? You would just defer, we wouldn't bring anything back regarding that follow-up information until all at the same meeting. And that's by all means possible. That way you're not considering things in isolation of other things. But I guess it would in regard to the budget itself, those decisions you make are what is going to bring back or is what is going to shape your next version of the budget, right? So that's why it's tough for staff to bring a budget back independent of those decisions, because that's already been done, right? Which is at that 20.65% number. But as these reports start to come in, right, the decisions you make impact the budget in various ways, right? So for example, the reserves report, we know there's savings there. We know that brings it down by whatever percent that works out to be, right? And basically that's how you get your next draft of the budget. But yeah, I guess back to the original question or point is we can certainly bring anything else back all at the same time. And I guess to this point, you can defer this to that meeting as well if you wanted to consider everything all at once.
Okay, take Councillor Palmer first and then Councillor McBurney.
I don't
No,
like
I'm
this
just
process
jumping.
either, but trying to live within it. And to Deputy Reeve, just because we're doing one, it seems like we're doing one arena at a time. It doesn't mean the last one is the goal, is the one that goes. It doesn't mean anything. Everything has to live on its own merit, really. But, and if we defer and everything comes back at once, how in the heck do you vote on that? You're still splitting hairs, and it makes it extremely difficult. I don't know how the heck we would. We're not considering there should be cuts elsewhere. You know, I think we all like our arenas. Doesn't matter where. They're all the center of the community. Doesn't matter where. So how do you cut? My first comment to you when we first discussed this was, I don't want to see Blythe shut down. That was my first comment to you. I still feel that way.
But you gave me 5 reasons why we had to look at it as
Excuse
well.
me, gentlemen.
I did not.
He pointed this question at me, so I'm...
No, I'm trying to just help the situation. So I see if there's a deferral and all of them come together, like, what do you do? What do you do? So, and it still doesn't mean we do anything, because it's easy to see the importance of our arenas for
Point
many reasons.
Point well taken. Councillor McBurney had your hand, please.
Yep. Thank you, through you, Ruth. In regards to, I understand the budget, I understand the conversations going on between our arenas and that, but with this report and the status quo is what I would actually lean to, because it's like fixing something that's not broke. That's what this report's telling me.
Okay, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, just kind of echoing a couple things that have been said before, but just to reinforce them. Yeah, I think unless we walk away from that entire facility, the ball diamond, the playground, whatever, we're always going to have, North Huron's going to incur expenses there, right? So I think it's important to understand that and maybe even try to estimate what that dollar value would be, because, you know, just the way the numbers that come out of this report would lead you to believe that if we shut down the arena, this is how much money we'll save, and that'll be a net savings, but I don't think it would, right? Because I think, as Councillor Palmer said, we'd be spending at least $10,000 or $20,000 of North Huron money just maintaining the lawns and the ball diamond, et cetera, right? So I think that's something to consider. But, you know, I think this is good work and good discussion because, you know, assuming we can get our border servicing agreement done, we understand this is kind of the next thing, right, to discuss with Morris Turnberry is support costs for the arenas. My view, and is that hopefully Morris Turnberry looks at the Belgrave Arena somewhat differently, because Belgrave is a community, it's divided down the middle. Just because the arena sits in North Huron doesn't mean, I don't think Morris Turnberry should be, I just think it would make sense they would pay for half the annual cost for this one, so. Anyways, you'd hate to shut it down and then find out Morris Turnberry after the fact would say, why didn't you come to us? We would have helped you out here, right? So that's why I think we should probably, I also support number 6. We should leave the status quo at least for another year, and then hopefully we can get to the point where we're having those discussions with Morris Turnberry and see how they feel about the ongoing support of the Belgrave Arena as well.
Okay. So, anything else from council? So I've got 2 things. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve.
In light of that, then would a motion be possible to rescind any of the actions taken on in the Blythe Ward and have the Blythe Ward be status quo? Does that just mean I can bring forward a motion shortly after this one? Verification.
Yeah, so through your worship, to answer Deputy Falconer's question, you can pass a motion to reconsider on anything which action has not been carried out yet. So I would say so.
Okay.
But you would need to go through the motion to reconsider process.
So go ahead with this.
Yeah, so I guess you do have a motion on the floor. So the motion on the floor is that the report of the CAO dated February 21st, 2023 regarding the Belgrave Community Center be received for information, and further that council directs staff to proceed with option number 6 as outlined in report CAO 2023-03 dated February 21st, 2023. Your mover is Councillor Palmer and your seconder is Councillor Van Hitterson.
Okay. So any other questions on this? Let's take it to vote. May I see a show of hands? Those in favor? Carried. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. I'd like to propose a motion to revisit and rescind
So
the...
yeah, if you're doing the notice of motion,
Yes.
agenda item 9.4.
Okay, thank you.
That's the next one, okay. Correspondence, would a member like to make a motion? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, Reeve Heffer, that's the one you've declared a conflict on. So Deputy Reeve Falconer, you'll want to assume the chair for this one.
Good. I can do it from here, if that's all right with you, or you...
I prefer, yeah, let's just.
Okay, thank you, Ray, for, his stepped out, says there's a conflict of interest on this next item of 8.1. The West Ontario Inc. Resolution, the confirmation of the appointees for the Board of Directors. The Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive a letter from the West Ontario Power Inc. regarding a special resolution of their shareholders for information purposes. And further, that the following persons are hereby confirmed as directors of the West Ontario Inc. Corporation: Mr. George Bridge, Mr. Chris Peabody, Miss or Mrs. Sue Peterson, Robert Buckle, Tim Lavoie, Mike Hitchenberg, Luke Commonborough, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Paul Heffer, and Don Murray. Do I need to go for a mover? I'm looking for a mover for the adoption of these people for the West Ontario Board. Of Councillor Mitch Wright and Councillor Lonnie Whitfield. Okay. All in favor of this motion? Carried. Well, if he thinks he's not giving it back, he's crazy. No, don't, away you go, no, it's all, no. Just kidding. Just keeping your warm, chair warm for you.
Thank you. Council reports. Reeve activity. I guess what I can say about with the county, we're working on the budget there, and it's, there's a long ways to go yet, but we are definitely working on it, so hopefully it can come down a bit. It was at 12 something, so it's a big budget too, so that's pretty well what I have to say for a Reeve report. Council member reports. Updates, written or verbal, for members who sit on boards or committees. Councillor McBurney, then followed by Deputy Reeve.
Thank you, Reeve. In our CHIP meeting, the Coalition for Hearing Injury Prevention, we've had our first meeting for this term of council. We've got new members on board, and going forward, we're trying to set up our terms of references. And we're concentrating, going forward as well, on road safety, share the road. So that's where we're at right now until we meet again.
Thank you, Councillor McBurney. Deputy Reeve.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. This concerns the Blythe BIA. Due to the weather, they have rescheduled their annual general meeting from this Thursday to Thursday, the March the 2nd at 8 a.m. They were just making that aware of us just this afternoon, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Henderson, followed by Councillor Wright.
Yes, the Midland Valley had their annual general meeting. They installed a new board and had a presentation about forest health in the Midland Valley region. MPP Matthew Ray was in attendance, and our county warden, among many new visitors. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Just a quick report from the Wingham BIA. They did have their annual general meeting. Everything went well there. Their big project for the year is they're going to be replacing a lot of the benches along Main Street. A lot of them have gotten old and worn. And also the plan is to actually refurbish and repurpose those benches along the walking trail in town. So I think it'll have a noticeable improvement to the look of Main Street.
Good.
Thank you, Reeve.
Thank you. No other comments by anyone? Okay. Thank you. Comments by members. Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I'm happy to announce on the last weekend, there was quite a few things going on in the little village of Blythe, in the Blythe ward. Don't want to take any accolades away from the president, but the Legion had a wonderful breakfast in the morning that was sold out before the time limit was up. I'm sure he's he can attend to the dishwasher hands that he may have, or that soft, clean nails there. But it was well attended. I was there myself and enjoyed it. That same day, the Lions had a skate, public skate at the arena, and the church groups also had the crafts down in the foyer for the kids that are off on Family Day, and I applaud them for their thinking outside the box and doing things on Family Day to celebrate the family. So, thank you very much.
Any other comments by members? I'd just like to share, yesterday, the Family Day down at the rec center here, it was busy. Also, I guess with the swimming end, I heard they had to stop people from coming in. Is that full? So that's always a very good sign too. So it's good, just good to see the busyness going on in the towns, and I see where it was down south and going past the Belgrave. I noticed it was very busy this past weekend too, is what was alluded to. So, any notice of motions? Council, Deputy Reeve?
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Before I make it, I just want some clarification. I don't want to stall a process, and my comments earlier were just on the process. But I'll make the motion, if we're just serious about, how do you say that, not doing anything with our assets at this time, we're just picking them off and saying, no, we're not gonna touch this, we're not gonna touch that one. It defeats the purpose of having the 3 months that we had, we've been talking about it, to look at things. So I'm not trying to throw a snowball into it, but it's just on the premise that we've already started the process of what we touch and what we don't touch. So I would like to make a motion to revisit the decision process, or the decisions that were made for the Blythe Wards recreation assets in favor of a status quo. The same weight that we just gave the assets in another ward. Knowing full well that's my motion, but I can talk about it later more, but I don't want to throw a wrench into a thing, but we've already done that. We've already set a precedent of making a decision, a firm decision, on whether we look at reduction in services. I'm just saying, we've made that decision. I want to bring it to a vote to council on a motion for the Blythe assets to be status quo. We've already made that decision for one municipality. I want to make it for my own. And that, because that process I was telling you about, where if you don't do it all together, you pick one off at a time, the last one that doesn't bring it forward doesn't have to do anything. I don't know how to make it any simpler. It's just, I don't think that the last way we did it was great, but I'm happy. I'll make the motion. And I'll plead my case at the next one that comes up.
Yep, yeah, so that's through your worship, so that's correct. So the process is, he's basically Deputy Reeve Falconer just informs council of the motion he will be bringing forward, and will present it at the next meeting. The motion
I read that
itself,
for you.
basically Deputy Reeve will provide that in writing, and it will be included on the next meeting. But I have something along the lines of what he's captured there. So that will appear on the March 6th council meeting.
Councillor Wright.
So for consideration, Reeve, I can't propose to amend a motion that hasn't been made yet, so I guess I would have to wait to the March 6th meeting.
Yeah.
But, okay, so we've dealt with East Wawanosh and Blythe, and nobody's discussed Wingham yet, right? So, I can amend the motion, I think, at the next meeting. That's probably the right way of doing this, but my feeling from the first or second budget meeting was rec services are not the problem, right? Rec services budget hardly changed from last year. I think this was a really good process. I think it was good to go through and consider these things. We got lots of community feedback. I think we know very well where the community's minds are at with regards to the programs that we're running. I guess from a notice of motion standpoint, I don't have anything now, but, I guess it's something I will, just to talk it through, I guess by process, what I intend to do at the next meeting would be to propose an amendment to that motion when it's brought forward, because I think we should deal with all North Huron assets at once, as opposed to motion by motion by motion. That would come up at the next meeting, so.
Just wonder nobody brought that up before.
Okay.
So basically that's, that's all that happens at this point. Deputy Reeve Falconer has provided his notice. He will speak to his motion at the next council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Bylaws. Bylaw number 11, 2023, Site Plan Control Bylaw. Do I have a mover? 10.1. Counselor Wright, seconder. Counselor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 12, 2023, Establishment of Oversight Committee for Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, seconder. Counselor Van Hitterson, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 13, 2023, Agreement with ADS Lawn Care for Cemetery Grass Maintenance. Do I have a mover? Counselor McBurney? Counselor Whitfield? All in favor? Carried. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, March 6, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the North Huron Town Hall Theater. I'd just like to make a comment about Robert James Scott. He's a former East Wawanosh resident. He is being inducted in Ontario Agricultural Hall of Fame as part of the 2023 class of inductees, and there are 11 of them that are being inducted. And he lived from 1900 to 1946, and his farm was just west of the East Wawanosh Township shed, and his daughter comes up here frequently and saying that he's a mixed farmer, but he had a specialty also of growing potatoes. I just want to commend his family for the accomplishment of Mr. Robert James Scott. Notice of motion request from Councillor Palmer that the council supplies a line-by-line document depicting the complete 2023 budget as is, and further that the said document be presented as the commencement of future budgets. Do you want an upper? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Well, I'll move it.
Okay,
You're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess basically just for clarity procedurally, right, so Councilor Palmer has put this notice of motion forward at the last meeting. It comes forward. This is your opportunity to basically present your notice of motion.
Okay. For the last at least 3 years, last term, most of last term, we received this information. It's extra information, I call it. And actually, it made the process a little faster because we had the information. We got to ask questions. If something on a line, doing the line by line, if something seemed off or odd, didn't understand it, we asked the question and we got an answer right away from the director, whoever. And it just helped the process. Right now, I'll do respect to Chris. I don't go by totals. I need more than that. It's just, I just need more information, and this is the perfect way. It would seem like it slows us down a little bit, but no, after one or so meetings, we've gone through the process of it, and then we're on to the decisions to make. So that's where I'm at. It just helps me. I can't vote on the budget as it is, like with the process as it's being presented to us now. I can't vote on that because I do not have enough information. I have to show my face to the public that, it's us that are on the line, not staff. Have to remember that. It's us. It's our faces in the newspaper. So-and-so said this and doesn't like that and blah, blah, blah. It's us that are on the firing line. And I can take the firing line, but I need to make a perfect, good decision. And I'm trusting that all of you are in the same boat. As long as we make an educated decision, because we have lots of information at hand, then we stand with it. So that's about it. It's just more information. I know it can be done. A push of a darn button will do it, and we used to get it. So the precedent has been set. It's not a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do you have a mover and a mover? Councillor Palmer, seconder? Councillor Wright? Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just before the vote, before I vote on it, I do just want to understand, why I guess why it hasn't been presented yet, if it has been done in previous years, and it was asked for during budget deliberations. Just wondering why does it have to come to a notice of motion in order to get this information? I'd just like some clarity on that.
So, yeah, Director Towns.
Here comes Director Towns, thank you.
Excuse me. Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Wright. Going through line by line is, for lack of better terms, an old school process. Administrative staff have gotten away from that over the last number of years. First of all, especially during the preliminary budget discussions, as you've seen through my presentations, all the charts and the graphs in the year over year and the transitions and the budgets versus actuals and the percentage of the cost for each function as we report through our FIRs, it's to provide the council as a board of directors a bigger picture on what the operation actually is. Staff feels that as you get into the line by line and you start looking at the operating cost, the general operating costs, such as your hydro, your utilities, your staff training, your salaries and benefits, and your building maintenance and supplies and paper clips and photocopier leases, the consensus is when we get into those types of conversations, it gets very drawn out. And staff feels that council is impeding on the operational perspective of the municipality. The way I presented the big charts and that, it gives you the overview of where your money's spent, and if there are any questions or concerns within that function, those percentages, those monies spent, those deficits, within any of that area, that's where council should be drawing their attention to speak with those directors to find out what they can do for cost efficiencies, levels of programming, levels of service, or any of those other areas. So that's essentially how we've gotten away, administrators, directors of finance have gotten away from providing the line-by-line details, especially at the very beginning of budget discussions.
Thank you, Director Towns. Were there any other questions for the director when he's here? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I understand that. The only issue I have with it is I didn't know what questions to ask. Some, obviously, but I don't want to get into the weeds, and I don't believe that we would. It's just, I felt dumb. I really did.
I apologize for that through the Reeve.
No, it's not something you did. It's just the process. I didn't know sometimes what to ask because I didn't see the value that was placed on doing this and that and that. And like I would question that, I would say, how come? Just how come? Oh, okay, makes sense. But at least then I knew, and then we can move on.
Thank you for that. Through the Reeve to Councillor Palmer. And again, the initial purpose of the way I presented it, I was here 2 weeks on the job when
I know.
I was told my first task was to prepare an annual budget for a municipality I've never been in. So it was quite interesting. But during that process, I made a lot of discoveries financially. I had to learn the municipality's finances inside and out, for lack of better terms, in a very short period of time and present council with something. With 5 members returning and 2 new councillor members that are, I'm going to call them North Huron lifers, should understand what's going on within the community and how the taxes have been created, developed, distributed, and et cetera. So with the way I presented with certain areas that were just very alarming, my intent was to have council really ask why to those directors. Why are these expenses at this? Why are these net costs at this? It was a different approach to engage with the directors to see what their levels of services are and what can be done to improve them.
Okay, Thank you, Director Towns, with that. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, through you, Reeve. So there seems to be some misunderstanding within staff. Because I support your approach, Chris, of council talking directly to directors, but then at the same time, we're being coached that all communication has to go through the Reeve and the CAO. So there seems to be, I'm getting mixed messages here on what the process is for this budget, because I would love to ask these questions directly, but it seems like that approach isn't being encouraged.
Through you, Reeve, to Councillor Mitch, right? Those questions were anticipated to be done during the presentation at the council meeting when we were doing the budget presentations. So as I went through the presentation and I went through the slide deck and I had some conversations with you, council as a whole, and I welcomed the other directors up for any question and answers, that would have been the time for that.
Just a quick follow-up, Reeve.
Yes.
We did ask the questions. We never got the answers. And we have no promise that we will receive the answers anytime soon. So again, I'm not sure how this, I'm trying to work through this budget process and try to understand it. But quite honestly, I'm at a bit of a loss here. Like, yes, I want to ask questions based on the information you're giving me, but if we can't get the answers should be coming back to us at a later date. But I personally have asked a lot of questions during the budget meetings. I've never received those answers. And not only that, I haven't even been given a commitment that I will ever receive those answers.
Yes, go ahead.
Councillor Wright, I've provided all requested information possible, right? So if you're requesting information from another director, your best bet would be to go and speak with CAO Evans.
Yeah, so which through you, Reeve, what's done?
Okay. Councillor, Deputy Reeve?
Yeah, through you, Reeve. Just maybe for clarification, you were talking about procedure. A question can be asked and an answer can be brought back. All questions should be going through the CAO to staff. It just stops from individual councillors from ascertaining more than any other councillor. You can, if you want information, like I say, if you wanted the line for line, proper ways, come out with a notice of motion that you wish to have all this information brought out. Individual councillors can't ask staff directly to procure their time only through the CAO and through a motion. Or else you would have each councillor saying, well, I'm walking up to the roads guy and say, I want this road plowed and I want that tree trimmed and this. It's not council's position to direct staff. And in order to get information, a question has to be asked. And I already covered that one there. But any information that is requested has to come through a motion so that all the councillors will get it. You can't just ask, I need line by line and of the budget and be the only one to get the line by line of budget. It has to come as a motion by council. Council can ask staff for a line by line, but individually you can't do that. You shouldn't be doing that as far as procedure goes. If I gave any more clarification to that, everything should run through the CAO or through a motion through council's motion, as we as a group ask staff what to do, what we need from them. Other than just a specific question, what is line B or line out, this or that. Broad sections like that you want, that would take up large portions of staff time have to go through a motion of council and go through the CAO. He's our connection to staff as far as requests go, or through the Reeve.
Thank you. Okay, we have on the floor a motion, and we have it first and second, right?
Yeah, so I guess, just for clarity for all staff and, all council and members of the public, the motion on the floor is that staff supplies a line-by-line document depicting the complete 2023 budget as is, and further that the said document be presented at the commencement of future budgets. So your mover is Councillor Palmer and your seconder is Councillor Wright.
Okay, no other questions? I want to take this to vote now. Let's show a show of hands, please. Carried. Closed session and reporting out that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at
7:49.
7:49 PM to an in-camera session closed to the public under Section 239, 2F and K of the Municipal Act to discuss the following: advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, cross-border servicing. And further that, CAO Evans and Clerk Lamb remain in attendance. Move now to closed session.
No, you need a mover to
Oh,
second.
mover and second. Councillor McBurney, Deputy Reeve, Faulkner?
Can we have a break?
Well, so you gotta call the vote.
Yeah, we'll have a vote. We go to vote first. All in favor?